Can I get roll call, please?
Mayor Gerardo Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Mayor Africa Luna Carrasco,
Present.
Councilmember Mario Buchanan Jr.,
Present.
Councilmember Luis Cabrera,
Present.
Councilmember Jose Ponce,
Present.
Councilmember Matias Rosales,
Present.
Councilmember Gloria Torres.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Vice Mayor, could you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sir. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for your gracious and goodness to each one of us. And Lord, as we enter into this new year and this time, and Lord, we just know that you have your hand of protection upon us. We know that you are going to give us the wisdom again, as you always have, and we rely on you to help us to make those decisions of what's best for our community as we represent them as elected officials. We pray now that you would bless this evening and all of those that are going to be honored. We thank you for their service to not only our community, but to our departments, because without them, there's no way that we as department heads could literally do our jobs to the best of our abilities. And we thank you for them as we honor them tonight as well. Have your hand on our decisions. We ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chief. We're going to go ahead and go with the proclamations. First one is 4A, which is the Cesar Chavez Day, March 30th. Sonia?
Cesar Chavez Day, March 31st, 2022. Whereas Cesar Estrada Chavez, a native Arizona born on March 31st, 1927, is celebrated as one of America's great Latino American civil rights activists, and whereas he was committed to organizing farm workers to advocate for safe and fair working conditions, reasonable wages, decent housing, and the elimination of child labor, and whereas Cesar Chavez and the Latino community worked together in the struggle for justice to defend the poor and return dignity, respect, and hope to workers, and whereas his nonviolent approach to social injustice made him an exemplary role model for union members nationwide and resulted in improving the lives of many Americans. And whereas the life and service of Cesar Chavez continue to inspire us all to seek progress and justice by peaceful means, and whereas Cesar Chavez peacefully passed away in his sleep on April 23, 1993 in San Luis, marking an era of dramatic changes in American agriculture. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, hereby proclaims March 31st as Cesar Chavez Day in San Luis and urges all citizens to participate in this important and historic event, dated this 23rd date of March 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want to mention a quick comment regarding Cesar Chavez Day, which is March 31st, 2022. Cesar Chavez is part of our history. We've been very fortunate to have such an advocate for farm workers and organized labor to be part of our history. And that's why we continue and we will dedicate March 31st as Cesar Chavez Day in recognition. Very few communities actually do this, and San Luis is one of them. We're very fortunate to have had Mr. Cesar Chavez have his meetings here. We're very fortunate to still have los Chavistas living among us, living in Somerton. And it's amazing. I invite everyone, when you see a Chavista, take a couple of minutes. Have them tell you a little bit of the stories, a little bit of the history that occurred when they were organized around a bonfire or when they discuss their plan to march, how they executed without violence. And it's just amazing. And when you speak to them, they speak with so much passion that it's amazing, the history. And not a lot of us take time and to talk to them because they have so much history, so much information that no textbook is going to give you. So when you see a Chavista, take his hand or take her hand because they were part of history and they helped all of us. Thank you, Sonia. We're going to go ahead and go with item number 4B, National Library Week, April 3rd through the 9th.
National Library Week, April 3rd through the 9th, 2022. Whereas libraries connect people to technology, providing access to broadband internet, computers, and training that are critical for accessing education and employment opportunities. Whereas today's libraries and their services extend far beyond the four walls of a building, and everyone is welcome to use their resources. Whereas in times of crisis, libraries and library professionals play an invaluable role in supporting their communities both in person and virtually. Whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all. Whereas to adapt to our changing world, libraries are expanding their resources and continuing to meet the needs of their patrons. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, hereby proclaims National Library Week, April 3rd through the 9th, 2022. During this week, he encourages all residents to connect with their library by visiting online or in person to access resources and services. Dated this 23rd date of March 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. And do we have a representative for the library here?
Yes, we do, Mayor.
Please. Would you come up front, please? You should have been pre-warned. It always happens. I personally want to thank you. I remember when we actually got our local library, and people were saying that we had no need for books, that everyone was going to be on the internet, and you proved them wrong. There's still a lot of people that go to libraries. You're still issuing a lot of library cards, and it's amazing when you see third, fourth graders reading the books. Yes. And I appreciate everything you do for our community. The services you provide to South County is just amazing, and continue doing the hard work. The reason why I asked you to come up front is to recognize your hard work. And please tell your staff, gracias por todo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have item number 4C, National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, April 10th to the 16th.
National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 10th through the 16th, 2022. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of San Luis Police Department Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of San Luis Police Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, Arizona, does hereby proclaim the week of April 10th through the 16th, 2022, to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in San Luis, Arizona, in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Dated this 23rd day of March, 2022.
Can I have our safety telecommunication personnel stand up, please? I'll take my mask off. Chief, I want to personally, on behalf of my office, on behalf of council, thank for the great job you guys are doing. I know you're short-staffed. Quite a few people are short-staffed. But the work you do, it's just amazing. You get calls at all times of the night, of the day, 7 days a week. You're very prompt. You're very professional. When I had to use you guys, it was amazing. 3 minutes later, there was someone there. And so you were very professional. You were very caring, and I appreciate your hard work. It's hard work being on the other side. People don't realize how hard your job is. Working those long hours and then going home, it's just, it could be very, very stressful up here. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being part of the city. And we really appreciate the hard work you do. I don't think we thank you enough. So I just want to say, take this time and recognize you. And I ask that we give you an applause to recognize you. Chief, you should be very proud.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, this is I wear my emotions on my sleeves. The crew that you see here for the past 2 years went from about 35,000 calls for service to, in 1 year, 65,000 calls for service to last year, as you will see in the budget retreat, went to 95,000 calls for service.
Wow.
That's a 60,000 call increase in 2 years. And yet they did it during those 2 years with 2 people down. We still haven't filled those 2 positions because we cannot find and get people to test appropriately to even pass those tests. Although, thank the Lord, today we had 1. So we're hoping that we can add 1 more addition to that staff. But I'm going to tell you what, I always revert back into my mind the days that I was on patrol, knowing that sitting behind a desk someplace in a dispatch center, there was somebody who always had my back. Always. And I cannot thank this crew enough for every day not complaining, showing up, putting in overtime when it needed to happen, and under the leadership of Gabby and Monica and the rest of the team, this team has far excelled, and San Luis should be very proud of what they've accomplished. And we thank you that we'll get to celebrate them in 2 short weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job. We're going to go with item number 4D, the Autism Awareness Month, April 2022. Sonia?
Autism Awareness Month, April 2022. Whereas autism spectrum disorders are a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, and speech and nonverbal communication. And whereas autism spectrum disorders affect at least 1 in 68 children and an unknown number of adults in the United States of all genders, races, ethnicities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. And whereas early, accurate diagnosis and appropriate education, intervention, and therapy are vital to the well-being of those with autism spectrum disorders. And whereas persons with an autism spectrum disorder should have access to the care, services, and opportunities they need to be happy and to achieve their greatest potential. And whereas the City of San Luis is honored to take part in the annual observance of World Autism Awareness Month in the hope that it will lead to more research and a better understanding and acceptance of autism spectrum disorder. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Autism Awareness Month, and encourages all citizens to raise public awareness and understanding of autism spectrum disorder, as well as to increase knowledge of the efforts that have been and are being made to support individuals with autism spectrum disorder and their families, dated this 23rd day of March 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want to say a quick comment on this proclamation. It's really, autism is a condition that requires multiple cares, not just one. I don't think Yuma, we're not there yet. Unfortunately, not like the big cities like Tucson or Phoenix, where they have a lot of the physical therapy, occupational therapy, the psychology, the psychiatry, all those aspects who treat autism. Yuma is lacking. Yuma County is lacking. And unfortunately, parents of children with autism see that and they get frustrated. And it's very important that autism does exist, and there are treatment plans out there. But unfortunately, we don't see them enough here in Yuma County. So when they say lack of mental health, they should also mention lack of treatment for autistic children. It's difficult. It's a different population, and that requires special treatment. And I'm just hoping that one day Yuma will provide the best possible treatment for children with autism, the best possible rehabilitation, physical therapy, occupational therapy. So we will continue to advocate for children with autism, and we need to be very persistent in getting the right people working here for the city and or for the county. Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and go with the item number 4E, Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2022.
Child Abuse Prevention Month to April 2022. Whereas every child is entitled to love, care, security, and protection from abuse, exploitation, and neglect. And whereas a report of child abuse is made every 10 seconds in the United States. And whereas child abuse and neglect is an important societal concern that may affect long-term health and well-being of not only the children, but also the adults they become. And whereas safe, stable, and nurturing relationships and communities can break the cycle of abuse and maltreatment. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the meaningful connections and partnerships created between child welfare, education, health, community, and faith organizations, businesses, and law enforcement. And whereas everyone has a stake of ensuring that children have access to the resources and supports their needs to be safe, healthy, and successful. And whereas suspected child abuse or neglect must immediately be reported to Arizona statewide child abuse hotline or law enforcement. And whereas prevention of abuse and neglect remains Arizona's goal for our children in families. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and further calls upon the citizens of San Luis to participate in efforts to protect children, strengthen families, and prevent child abuse and neglect. Dated this 23rd day of March, 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want a quick comment regarding this topic, this proclamation, child abuse and prevention. One of the things about COVID is not just the people we lost to COVID, but also there was a higher incidence of child abuse during this time. Amberley's Place we're seeing higher numbers, especially not just here, but throughout Yuma County. And it's really unfortunate when you have more people not working or staying home, you start seeing the child abuse, you start seeing the sexual assaults. And we're just very grateful, and I'm very grateful for council for supporting organizations like Amberley's Place, who are here 24/7, and they make a difference. They made a difference, and they showed me the numbers, and the numbers are there. So numbers don't lie. It happens here, it happens everywhere. And if you say it doesn't happen in your community, you are wrong. So it's better to recognize and work with the problem we have, and continue working with these organizations that make a difference. So thank you, Sonia. We're going to go home with item number, 4F, National Fair Housing Law of 1968, month, April 2020.
National Fair Housing Law of 1968, month, April 2022. Whereas the National Fair Housing Law of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act, and the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, leasing, and financing of housing or land to be used for construction of housing or in the provision of brokerage services on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, or national origin. And whereas the 1968 and 1988 Federal Fair Housing Acts declare that it is a national policy to ensure equal opportunities in housing. And whereas April has traditionally been designated as Fair Housing Month in the United States. And now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, hereby proclaims April 2022 as National Fair Housing Law of 1968 Month, and the Fair Housing Amendments Act of 1988 for fiscal year 2022 in the City of San Luis, and does hereby urge all citizens of this community to comply with the letter and spirit of the Fair Housing Law, dated this 23rd day of March 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want a quick comment regarding this one. It's the National Fair Housing Law of 1968 month, April 2022. We're very fortunate to see that San Luis is probably one of the fastest growing communities in the state. According to the governor last year, San Luis is the booming town of Arizona. With that, I would like to thank those who build to sell homes for being part of our community and for advocating for a national fair housing law of 1968. It happens here in San Luis, and I just want to commend, and for those who do sell homes, that thank you for what you do, and thank you for recognizing that there is that fair housing law that exists to protect our residents and everyone else. So thank you. Sonia, we're going to go ahead with item number 4G, Records and Information Management Month, April 2022.
Records and Information Management Month, April 2022. Whereas Records and Information Management Month was first introduced in 1995 by the Association of Records Managers and Administrators to celebrate the importance of records and information management professionals and to highlight the value they bring to organizations and communities. And whereas the management of public records, information, and data is critical to every government agency in ensuring compliance and profitability, and to every government agency for serving the best interests of those within its jurisdiction. And whereas technologies are increasing the volume of information and globalization is expanding the complexity of information, therefore the proper management of information as an asset is essential. And whereas control and governance of records, information, and data is necessary for the reduction of risk, liability, and associated cost, as well for compliance with global standards and practices. And whereas the city's records management specialist is responsible for the careful management, disposition, and provision of access to public records on behalf of the City of San Luis residents and community members. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, hereby proclaims April 2022 as Records and Information Management Month in the City of San Luis, Arizona, dated this 23rd day of March 2022.
I just want to say thank you for the city clerk and her staff for keeping records, because when we first started, the records were kept by paper. Now it's paperless from here on, and so it takes a lot of work. Thank you, IT, for making a difference, and I'm pretty sure you're going to hit us with a budget next year. You're probably going to want bigger servers with a lot more memory, so understood. So thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4H, Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2022.
Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2022. Whereas sexual assault at its core is a devastating abuse of power, one that affects people of every age, race, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, national origin, socioeconomic background, and religion. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment have extensive and widespread physical and mental health implications, including post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, and suicide. And whereas 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced sexual violence involving physical contact at some point in their lives, and whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that 43.2% of females and 51.3% of males first experienced victimization prior to age 18. And whereas 66% of women and 36% of men report knowing their perpetrators, and 67% of victims under the age of 18 identified their perpetrator as a family member, and 75% said they were currently living with that perpetrator. And whereas 59% of violent crimes are not reported to law enforcement. And whereas through prevention, education, awareness efforts, a strong continuum of victim services, and holding perpetrators responsible for their actions, we can work together to better address sexual violence and create safer communities for all Arizonans. And whereas through collaborative efforts, individuals, agencies, organizations, and communities can work together to prevent sexual assault and support victims and survivors. Now therefore be it resolved that Gerardo Sanchez, Mayor of the City of San Luis, does hereby proclaim April 2022 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and urges all citizens to support victims when they reach out and disclose abuse. Dated this 23rd day of March 2022.
Thank you, Sonia. I just want to reemphasize those numbers that you mentioned, the quote, the 60% and the 36% are probably going to be higher next year because they're going to reflect this year's, the past year's new percentage. They look higher. So we need to continue supporting groups like Amberley Place and to continue providing that service to our community. And I'm pretty sure, Chief, you get the numbers regarding the numbers of increase, the percentage of their participation here in our community. And so it's very important. We're advocates for agencies like that help us with this terrible crime. So thank you. We're going to go ahead and go with the consent agenda. All matters are considered to be routine by City Council, be enacted by one motion. If discussion decided, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Minutes of work session meeting held March 2, 2022. Regular council meeting held March 9th, 2022. Disbursements from March 1st, 2022 to March 14, 2022. Total disbursement, $804,015.01. I will now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. We're going to go ahead with first item, number 6A, discussion of possible action on matters regarding creating an improvement district or districts to issue bonds to pay for needed infrastructure for the growth in the east part of San Luis. Monica?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I will be introducing Mark Reeder. He will be discussing with you several alternatives, two alternatives available to the city to finance the growth of the east part of San Luis. Just a little bit of a preamble before he starts. I just want to mention that the team internally, we had several meetings. We review all the projects that are needed at that part of the city. We had initially 13 projects. We were able to identify funding for 9 projects, whereas by ARPA, reserves, other methods of financing, grants. So 4 projects are left, and these are the ones that we believe that are very good candidates for any of the 2 alternatives that Mark Reeder is going to present. As you know, he's no stranger to the city. He has assisted us in various projects, and welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Castro, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. Thank you for having me down to the city. I wanted to come down and be in front of you this evening rather than be on the Zoom calls because we're going to talk about some, technical issues, and I want to be able to be here for you and make sure we answer all your questions as we continue to educate you on the alternatives that Monica just mentioned to you. I have a PowerPoint here we just handed out. I thought what I would do is start with kind of the projects that Monica just mentioned. There's a lot of opportunities in a growing city, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as you know, and with your explosive growth, I was really taken back by the number of service calls that the chief just shared. That's just an incredible number, but it shows that you're growing. There's a lot of opportunities, but as you know, a lot of challenges with growth. Trying to keep up with all the public infrastructure improvements a community needs, right? Traffic infrastructure, parks, open space, utilities. We have to have utilities in order to grow. All of that is very expensive. And so I know you're dealing with that. I know you're in your budget sessions now. You do your best. And so I wanted to kind of share with you a few alternatives here for the city's consideration. These numbers will likely change a little bit as we get in the room with folks, but let's just start with this. You're familiar with this. It's our understanding that as a result of some potential significant growth in the east side, and apparently some developers have approached the city with their interest in moving forward in terms of additional residential housing, entitlements, things of that nature. And along with that is the potential need to expand your wastewater treatment plant by several MGD, what they call MGD, million gallons per day. And so apparently the latest numbers we're getting is about $10 million. On the right-hand side, I indicate here benefit. One of the things we're going to talk about this evening is if you build public infrastructure and you pay for public infrastructure, who benefits from that? It's a very important topic. So in this particular example, as it relates to the wastewater treatment plant expansion, as I understand it, that the developers will benefit from that because they need that plant expansion in order to continue their growth and development. Fair on that? In other words, not a general wide improvement, if you will. It's just more geared towards assisting the development community, which you want to do, with that growth on the east side. So that's why we put kind of developers would primarily benefit from that wastewater treatment plant expansion. And then we started talking with staff about the roundabouts, the intersections, the road widenings that you all need to do. And we'll have additional conversation on that, but maybe some of the city benefits from that, and maybe some of it benefits the new east side residential construction, okay? So at this point, the city's coming up with about $12.3 million, okay? Now, we have a couple ways to do that, and this is very common in the fast-growing cities in Phoenix. Growth pays for growth, generally speaking. From a city council policy perspective, you know, if you're growing, we need the developers, if you will, growth to help pay for growth. Fair on that? Very common for our cities. So when we get into these big master plan communities or these residential communities, we'll enter into a development agreement with the developers and Public Works and the city engineers, and our city staff is in the room, and negotiate, if you will, how some of this infrastructure is going to be paid for. So it's not uncommon for some developers to pay for the entire infrastructure in cash. Fair on that? They have to kind of step in and help pay for that. Some cities have pretty significant impact fees, right? Where if you come in, Yuma has, for example, a water impact fee, they have a sewer impact fee. And as home builders come in, they have to pay, I think it's somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000, I forgot the number. They have to pay, and all that money goes into a pot. And then that money is used to help expand the infrastructure or to help pay for debt service. So developers can pay in cash. There'll be a combination. Cities can implement impact fees, development impact fees. And then the third option is some of these tools in our Arizona toolbox that we use in Arizona to help facilitate all this. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
So I'm going to pause there, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I just wanted to kind of give that as an introduction, and then we'll start getting into the details. All good so far, Mr. Mayor, members of the council? Okay. Yes. So we wanted to share this with you. Okay, now, let's just, we like to give you some numbers. These are going to change more than likely, but we like to give you some numbers just to be thinking about. But let's use this hypothetical example here. So down below here, down below, go down where it says uses, and you can see those are the projects we just went over. You see the 10 million, you see the 500,000, the 800, and the Avenue F widening at roughly $1 million. Okay. Then we sized in a hypothetical bond issue here at $13 million. I'm going to round if you don't mind. And if the city were to participate in a financing, which is what we're going to talk about here momentarily, the two tools in our toolbox, and if the city were to help sponsor or work with the development community through the issuance of some kind of a bond, and as you all know, a bond is simply a loan, what might it look like? The city in this example would issue roughly $13 million in bonds. We're going to talk about that in a moment. We would amortize that over probably 25 years. Public infrastructure, especially sewer, lasts a long time. And you can see I used an estimated interest rate of 4%. Remember, when cities issue bonds, they issue bonds, the interest income is exempt from federal taxation, so it lowers the borrowing rate. That's all good. We've done that for you, as you know. We used 4%. And you can see the annual debt service payments on this hypothetical scenario is about $850,000 a year. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to give you that backdrop. And we're not asking the city to pay the $850, so bear with me here. We're going to go through the two options. Okay. So I wanted to share this with you very quick, and we've all been in the room together. We've done bond issues together over the years. We're going to really talk about two types of bonds this evening very quickly. To a lesser extent, general obligation bonds, bonds paid back from property taxes. Okay? That's an option for us. We're not really going to spend a lot of time on that this evening. The other one we're going to drill down on a little bit is the second one there, which is a special assessment. It's not a property tax. Sometimes people get those confused. It is collected by the county treasurer. If in fact we do move forward, but it's an assessment. It's an assessment on the land that benefits from the public infrastructure. It's not a citywide, right? We're going to talk about a geographic boundary. So what we would do is we would create a geographic boundary, not around the whole city, but only an area that's going to benefit from what we just discussed. And they're going to help pay back the bonds because they benefit from that public infrastructure. And we're going to allocate each property owner an assessment. And they're going to pay their fair share, we call it. It's got to be paid back by each property owner. We'll probably have multiple property owners, would be my guess, if we proceed with a San Luis transaction. I would hope so. The more property owners we have, the more generally efficient and more fair it is. So I know that we haven't figured all that out yet, but the long and the short is that each property owner who participates and who benefits has to pay their fair share. All good on that? Yes. So we call that a special assessment. So I wanted to share that with you. Then the last one down there, Monica mentioned this. There is the possibility that we could perhaps get some grant funds for some of our public infrastructure improvements down here. So that's going to be a function of what method we choose, and I'm going to walk you through here in a moment. But as we proceed with this, we'll work very hard to see if there's any potential grant monies out there through the state and federal programs. So bear with us on that. And as we put this Rubik's Cube together, for lack of a better term, we'll report back to the City Council to see if we can take advantage of any potential federal or state grants. All good on that? Okay. I put this in here. This is just the life cycle of a development. We talked about this. The developers are probably in with the city now doing some of their entitlement work, what we call pre-development. And then they're requesting some infrastructure improvements in the second box, right? That's kind of where we're at now, along with the entitlement process. And then when all that gets done, then it goes to partial development and ultimately full development. So I like this slide because it shows us kind of a life cycle of a development. And as you all know, real estate development is a long-term play. Fair? It takes years to entitle, put the infrastructure in the ground, sell homes, build homes. It'll take years most of the time, and we'll go through various economic cycles in connection therewith. And so our development, a lot of our development community and our developers have resources. They have a balance sheet, if you will. They have investors that allow them to, over a longer period of time, kind of go through all this. Okay? So I hope you find that helpful, and it's kind of where we're at now with. Okay, so I'm going to primarily use case studies here, and I'm going to try to go through this a little bit quicker. Bear with me. We're going to talk about the first option here, which is called an improvement district. We're going to talk about two special districts, tools in our toolbox that Arizona gives our cities and towns to help with economic development projects, whether they be commercial or whether they be residential. One tool is called an improvement district. The other one we're going to talk about is a community facilities district. Two very, very distinct and separate financing options to finance our public infrastructure, okay? And we're going to focus on these special assessment bonds. So on an improvement district, let's go there for a moment. On an improvement district, and get to my slides here, we would draw a geographic boundary. This thing actually goes the opposite way on me. If I go right, it goes, uh-oh, let me go back here. There we go. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Member of the Council. Operator error here. Okay, so let's go through a case study here. This is an improvement district case study, the last one I worked on. Bullhead City. You guys have been up to Bullhead lately? Another very vibrant, progressive city that has a lot going on. And they can't keep up with their public infrastructure either, in terms of resources. So they had 3 developers approach the city. Okay, and I'm going to show you this graph right here. This is a road, essentially a road expansion project, because with improvement districts, we can do utility, we can do wastewater treatment plants, we can do collection lines, right? We do a lot of road improvement districts, because roads are a major issue in our state. The developers approached the city, and they partnered with the city, and it was about a $5.3 million project, and they punched a road there. Can you see there? You can see the road there. Again, this isn't the greatest graph. They punched a major roadway thoroughfare to aid and assist with their traffic congestion. You see what they did from top over to the bottom. That's the airport up on top there. See where that airport is? That is a commercial area. And they've been successful at attracting a lot of economic development. And this is zone commercial, so the property owners came to the city and said, would you partner with us? Would you form an improvement district around our property only? And there were 3 property owners in this particular case. There were 6 pieces of land, 3 property owners. And we got in the room with the property owners, and the city said, yes, we will partner with you. We will throw in $1.5 million, because the city wanted to do some traffic signals and some roundabouts that they already kind of had budgeted. So they had the budgeted money, and they needed roughly another $4 million to complete this road right here, okay? So we got in the room with the developers, we educated them, and on this slide here, just to give you an idea, go down below where it says 3.8 million. You see the 3.8 million there down at the bottom? I used 4 million because I like to round. It's a $4 million construction contract. You can see the 1.5 the city put in there for the total of 5.3. So each property owner then was allocated, back to this benefit, they were allocated capital costs according to a formula. And I think we did this one on a per acre basis. We don't always do it on a per acre basis. But the way that we allocated that 3.8 million back to each property owner is as indicated. You see the parcel numbers there. So that one parcel, 071, was a larger parcel. And so they got 50% of the 3.8 million that you can see up here. That's their fair share. And you can see $1.5 million, and then the smaller property owner was about $400,000. Okay? So you see how we did that? So they agreed to take on that assessment, that debt that they have to pay back, and we then broke it out between the acreage calculation. Okay? worked out very well. Property owners were very happy, the city was very happy, and the city issues the bonds. This is the difference here I'm going to get into. If you look at on the right-hand corner, this is a Bullhead City special assessment bond issue that we sold to investors. That's what I do for you all, as you know, after we get everything figured out. The good news is that if it's a city bond issue, it's going to have a much lower interest rate. Again, public-private partnership, if you will, at its best in Arizona. It'll have an interest rate based on your AA minus credit rating, which, as you know, you're very well rated. And so when I go out and sell bonds, I'm selling a City of San Luis Improvement District bond. And the reason why, and we put all this information in, the property owners have to make the special assessment payments, okay? The biggest risk in an improvement district under Arizona law is that if one of those property owners does not make their assessment, let's use a hypothetical example of the developer going bankrupt. If the developer were to go bankrupt, or if the developer was unable to make their bond payment, the city is required to dip into your general fund to make a temporary loan to make the payment. That's back to that situation makes my job a lot easier. And so our risk is when we do these improvement districts around the state, if you choose this alternative, which is, as I'm going to share with you, the most efficient alternative for various reasons, that's our risk. So before we do that, we make sure that we have appropriate value. You know, we don't go, we go into this very carefully, and we want to make sure that we have enough value in the property, right? In the event there's a meltdown scenario, such that if we foreclose on the property, we have somebody at the courthouse steps that's going to make our assessment payments and give us our money back. Fair on that? So the long and the short of these improvement districts, which I think are fantastic economic development tools, if they're done right, and it is the finest form of a public-private partnership we have on our Arizona statutes. So we got to make sure the property owners are all in. We haven't had a lot of issues in Arizona because generally speaking, if the developer were to go south on us, their partners step in because they want to maintain their investment. But if we do move down this route, and we've shared this with staff, it would be a risk that we would have to very carefully think through before a decision is made. So I know I spent way too long, but I hope, generally speaking, kind of the improvement district process that you would form and that you would participate in as a city, all of us as a team, working in a collaborative fashion with the development community to craft a financing that makes sense. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go ahead and pause and see if there's any question.
It's just a lot of information.
Okay, it is. That's why I wanted to come down.
Yeah, please. No questions.
Okay, so far so good? So I wanted to share that case study with you, and then I'm gonna zip on through these, okay? And you've got a good book here, and I'm still trying to figure this thing. I think I got it now. Here. Okay, so that's Bullhead City. There's Buckeye. Buckeye used this mechanism along with CFDs extensively as they were growing. And they were like City of San Luis, 10 years ago. Now they're also one of the fastest growing. They had to use these tools. So Buckeye, this was a $2.5 million sewer improvement district, and we just did one for roads. So I just wanted to share that with you. These are the geographic boundary examples, right? So we have to identify the geographic boundary. Here's one up in Kingman we did for a Burlington Northern Santa Fe rail crossing. They wanted to open up some land out by the airport to attract economic development, and they had a rail line running through, and they wanted to build a new rail line. Okay? So I'm going to stop there for now. That's number one, alternative number one, improvement districts. Now let's talk about community facilities districts. You're a little familiar with these. It's a similar structure with our assessment bonds. We do them the same way, but the difference, and with our community facilities districts under our statutes, as you can see here, we can finance a lot of public infrastructure through the issuance of bonds and through the creation of a living, what I refer to as a living, breathing, political, brand-new subdivision within your city. Okay, so we would have geographic boundaries, we would have the development community in the room with us, same as the improvement district, right? This city council would be the board of directors of the living, breathing, political subdivision. You would have to have budgets and all those things. And we would figure out all the economics and all the math that we talked about together, right? And we would form a district, and we would sell assessment bonds, just like we talked about. And we would have a value to lien requirement, generally 4-to-1. So for every dollar of debt that you're going to issue, you have $4 of value. Fair on that. That helps us with cushion and economic downturn. All done by a qualified appraiser, an MAI appraiser that takes into account the increase in land value from the public infrastructure, all of that. So all that hopefully comes together within a transaction. And then at one meeting, your city council forms a brand-new living, breathing political subdivision called City of San Luis Community Facilities District. And you're open for business. And in connection therewith, we would also sell those assessment bonds we talked about to investors. There's a big market out there for investors that understand these types of transactions if they're properly done, which they will be, as you know, with this city council involved and us at the table with you and your staff. And really the big difference here is that your city general fund does not back these bonds. These bonds stand 100% on their own. That's the big difference. So they would be non-rated bonds. The interest rate would be substantially higher than if we did the improvement district, right? Because we have the city behind it. But we structure a lot of these in Arizona and throughout the United States. So I wanted to share this one with you. I'm really proud of this one. This is in 2005. Remember when the recession hit? 2008. In 2005, the city of Buckeye went into a building moratorium because they ran out of treatment plant capacity. And the developers were flying out to Buckeye because land was cheaper. And the city would not give them building permits because they ran out, or they were running out of wastewater treatment plant capacity. So they didn't have 49 million. That's how much this one was. The city certainly didn't have that. They didn't have that in their development fee account. And so we got in the room with 21 developers and home builders. And they all agreed to form it, and they all agreed to pay their fair share of the assessment allocation. We had the value to lien, okay, to help with the cushion in case there's an economic downturn. And we sold $49 million in bonds, and they expanded their wastewater treatment plant by 3 MGD and added collection lines to the properties that benefited from that infrastructure. All good? Amazing project. And next time you go out through Buckeye, you know where Watson Road is when you're going into town? You can see the commercial development that has occurred. And then, I don't know, a year later, we went into the Great Recession, if you remember. And the values dropped significantly. And it survived, and people made their assessment payments, and everything was fine. But this is a very unique transaction that was done. This is the aerial. It was 2,100 acres. It was platted for 8,000 homes. And you can see the shaded marks there. If you have it on page 21, you see the checkerboards. Those are the property owners that participated in the CFD. And they were all allocated that piece, the piece of the infrastructure of the 49 million. And so this one's gone very, very well, and of course, the Buckeye continues to grow. So I wanted to share this CFD case study with you and walk you through conceptually the difference between the two. So I'm going to pause there, and we've got a lot of other information in here. I'm going to wrap it up here in 5 minutes, believe it or not, and I penciled out a comparison for you. And I'm going to go through this very quickly. New formed political subdivision improvement district, no. A community facilities district, yes, it will remain in perpetual existence. Most of our community facilities districts are large amounts. So when I saw 12.3 million, and that number's probably going to change, either up or down, we don't know yet, fair? We don't generally do community facilities districts for a smaller transaction like that, if you will. And I'm going to share, because they're more expensive, much more expensive. Board members, no new board members of the ID. You would be the board of directors of the CFD. Developer indemnification. So what happens on these transactions, especially on CFDs, the attorneys will likely require, this will be negotiated in the development agreement, if you form a community facilities district, some form of protection in the unlikely event there may be litigation. And there has been in the past, based on a variety of situations over the last 30 years. We can get into that later. Doesn't normally happen, but it has happened. So if we decide to form a community facilities district, we're going to have a heart-to-heart conversation. Of course, Kay would be involved in that, and Louis and staff, okay? But it becomes difficult. So that's why we have that indemnification. It's a public works project. We talked about that. It would have to be bid out under Title 34. We can do a construction project, or we can do acquisition. We'll get into that later. And then as far as the formation is concerned up there in the left, we need 100% property owner participation. We need all of our property owners wanting to be on board. That makes sense? And I think that's doable in the city of San Luis, we're hoping. We want everybody to be on board, sit at the table with us, and it's going to require 100% property owner participation, and we're going to have their staffs and their legal counsel at the table with us. Credit rating, we talked about that, AA minus versus the non-rated. So the interest rate is much more expensive on the CFD side. We talked about the risk. City has some risk, so we have to be careful. And then on the CFD side, you still have some risk in the event things go bad, maybe not as much. You're certainly not required to dip into the general fund if there's a problem that I'm aware of. And then the special assessments will be allocated based on a fair and equitable formula. We'll have to talk more about that. And if we do a CFD, we're definitely going to have an appraisal. And the improvement district, we put maybe in there. So with that, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I know that was a lot. This will be one of maybe several study sessions. I hope this is helpful for you for starters. And I'm glad to answer any questions that council or staff or the community might have. Thank you very much.
Mark, I just want to say that it is something that we really need to look into. We need to continue to having workshops because there are some risks the city might take. And the thing is, it's very important that we all go over this and everyone in council understands what exactly we're doing. It is a little complicated.
Yes.
And the thing is, we want to make sure that we do the right thing. Thank you for bringing up the case studies. I think it's very important because we should not be recreating the wheel. It's already there. So it's something that it needs to happen.
Okay.
But we need to find the right solution. And the thing is, I know staff is working on it. I know staff will make recommendations. I just have a question for Kay. Why do we have to approve for staff to proceed and give us a proposal? Since when?
That was just a suggestion to keep it moving. Of course, you always
I mean, I don't see a reason why we should have a motion to proceed. Staff is working on this.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so no motion needed. Staff will continue working on this.
Yes, that could be the direction as well. Just continue what we're doing. We just wanted to have this presentation
Okay.
to see if council is okay with what we're doing.
Obviously, there's a lot of information we need, and the thing is, Mark Reeder, thank you. And I know staff is working, not only are you working with the budget, but you're also working on this item. And this item requires a lot of attention, a lot of time and effort, and I commend you. I don't know if council has any objections, but I just proceed with this. I don't think we have to do a motion. I think just continue and give us this information. We definitely need to have a workshop specifically for this one. Make sure that everyone understands we're on the same page, because right now it's a lot of information, and we want to make sure we make the right decision. We're not going to make any decisions right now. We're not going to, I mean, where do we start? That's the question. So staff, more work, sorry. So thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, great to see you. We'll look forward to continuing to work with you, and hope to see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you. We're going to go with item number 6P, discussion of possible action on matters regarding the intergovernmental agreement between the City of San Luis and Town of Welton for Community Development Block Grant Administration Service. Jenny?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Tonight, what we're presenting is an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Welton. As you know, our grant writer retired, and there is a project, Mesa Street project, that we just received a Arizona Department of Housing grant for $626,000. That project will need, we will need to pay a lot of attention because there's a lot of infrastructure and a lot of changes that we foresee. There are some changes also at the Department of Housing, and we have to do a lot of surveys and a lot of labor standards. It's not complicated, it's time-consuming. And so what we were proposing to do is the grant does provide some funding for administration of that. And so what I want to do is hire the representative from the town of Welton that helps them with their CDBG projects on a temporary basis so that she can assist me in just making sure that we're moving the project forward as it does have some deadlines. The funding would come from the CDBG grant in terms of the administration, and we did put a little bit of cushion on the side, so she can also help me with some of the environmental work that we want to resubmit some other applications.
Thank you, Jenny. I mean, I have no problem with that. Any discussion from staff or council? If not, I want to take a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the City of San Luis and the Town of Welton for CDBG administrative services.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Jenny. Item number 6C, public hearing followed by discussion, possible action on all matters regarding the recommendation of a special event liquor license application to the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control to authorize the San Luis Frontera Rotary Club to sell alcohol during the 2022 Arte en la Calle event to be held Saturday, March 26, 2022. I will now entertain a motion to open public hearing.
So move, Mayor.
Second. There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those against? Motion carries. It is now open to the public. Sonia?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, yes, we have Marcos who will be making the presentation on the application as he is a member of the Frontera Rotary Club.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. It's been a while since I've been in front of you, I think almost 2 years, so I'm glad I was able to make it to this presentation. We were invited by the City of San Luis to once again participate in one of our
Yes.
upcoming events. and this is for the Arte de la Calle at the Battle of the Bands. They have it scheduled here for April 23rd. So just to clarify something, because I think I was asked to clarify it. Originally, it was going to be on March 26th, if I'm correct here. And then because of all the Cesar Chavez activities, we did not want to have that overlapping, so it was decided to move. So the application that was submitted does reflect the new date. It's just a little bit of a last thing that got switched. So I just want to make sure that's clear that it is going to be on the 23rd of April. As for the Rotary Club, we are more than happy to once again participate. We've been very happy the fact that the city's invited us multiple times to participate. We've had no issues as of, we've never just had any issues with our liquor license or the event. So we are looking forward to once again be part of this events and upcoming events with the community. I think we are ready. The club members are aware of this upcoming event, and they'll be more than happy to be here, coordinated with our local police department and security to make sure this event goes as smooth as every other event we've had up till now. I don't know if any questions or anything.
Thank you, Marcos. Now, does council have any questions or concerns?
Yes, sir.
Does staff have any questions or concerns? Sonia, were there any objections to this liquor license?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, my office did not receive any comments in favor of or against this application or request.
Thank you. Is anyone from the public have any questions or comments or regarding this topic? If not, I will now entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So move. Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to recommend approval to the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control for the special event liquor license application to the San Luis Frontera Rotary Club as presented.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Marcos.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Item number 60, discussion and possible action on matters regarding the selection of proposal from the consultant agency to assist with the recruitment of city manager. Mr. Galaviz?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm more comfortable standing up here and speaking to you. I just want to clarify something. I did send an update. The Protham proposal is $20,500. The CPS proposal is $25,000. I know that Mayor and Council had requested for me to go out and look for proposals for the recruitment of the new city manager. I did not have, these are the only two out of 4 that I requested proposals from. These are just a real quick brief on CPS. It would take about, they're proposing it'll take about 4 months, and the cost would be $25,000. Both proposals are for these two, each consultant to fully execute the recruitment and hiring of a city manager. The Protham one would take 3 months, and that cost is $20,500. I wanted to, this was requested back in January, so I wanted to provide Mayor and Council with an update, and I just would like to request direction.
Louis, a quick question. When they say it's going to take 3 months and 4 months, how do they make that assessment?
They have in their proposals a timeline breakdown of 2 to 3 weeks for certain recruiting, advertising, background, different processes. So they have that in the proposal. That is what they are proposing. Of course, in each proposal, that is just an estimate. That is not, I cannot tell you that that will be completed in the 3 or 4 months that is in this proposal. There is flexibility in the proposals that it might take a little bit longer.
Okay. In their proposal, what would happen if they take 6, 7 months?
They, each proposal, they have up to a year to work on recruiting. And so that's their commitment to continue to look for and to hire for their services.
Louis, in this proposal, for example, they limit their services to 3 months. How much will they increase? Will they increase another 25,000 after 3 months?
It would depend, some might, depending on if they have to go out after the first recruiting, if those candidates aren't to the satisfaction and final approval of mayor and council. So it could be more, yes. This would be a good scenario in a sense of if everything went smoothly and they projected that. There is additional cost if the search takes longer.
Mr. Galavisi, is going to take longer. I don't think the city of Yuma, which puts a lot more money into it, has taken more than 3 months. They have. And for us to think that it's going to take less than 3 months, I just definitely want to see a proposal, more in-depth proposal, not of this. These are good numbers, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at probably 60, 70, or 80,000. And those are the numbers I want to see.
Mayor, I just look for direction from Mayor and Council today, and if you'd like, I can go back and request those numbers specifically for that time frame if you'd like.
I think so. I think we should have that cushion of 6 months. Would you agree or not agree, Council?
I agree as well, but I also think that I saw in the update that we already have 6 applicants without having someone advertise the position, so we might also need to consider not hiring an agency and taking a look and screening those applicants and getting like a panel, so maybe we can interview in-house, Yuma County, maybe someone in the state wants to relocate to San Luis. So I think you should come back with the numbers for like a 6-month thing, but we also need to consider the local applicants.
I agree in a way that we need to get that assessment, but we need a professional agency to screen them. We don't have, I don't think staff has the ability to screen them. The city manager it's a very important position, and I would rather have a professional review any applicant that might be applying. And so give us those numbers.
Yeah. And Mayor, I would agree with you. I think if we do any hiring for the city manager, we should have professional consultants and not done in-house. I think that would give a bit more value to the background and making sure we're selecting the correct person.
Thank you.
Just to add, Louis, also, I know City of Somerton hired a city manager in the past 2 years, probably, so maybe we can get with them and see what they did. And I know the town of Welton was also looking for a town manager. I don't know if they already hired someone or not, but we can take a look at what they've done too, ask for support.
I can definitely follow up and provide that information.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 6E, discussion and possible action on matters regarding the location of the budget retreat for the fiscal year 2023. Council members Luis Cabrera, Council member Jose Ponce, and Council member Gloria Torres.
Yes, Mayor, we brought this to council to discuss regarding the budget retreat, and we should consider doing inside, doing in town, instead of travel outside. And I know there's another cities, I see Somerton did it in-house. The supervisor do it inside too. They didn't go out, so we should consider discussing that.
Okay.
What do you think about it?
No, you brought it up. Good.
We should do it in town?
I'm listening to you guys.
Yeah.
I asked, I'll comment as well. As a citizen, it was something I would criticize a lot, that I couldn't see the presentations and participate. And I know that you guys went to the talking stick and had the budget retreat there. So I'm not going to be a council member that when I was a citizen, I criticized and do the same action. So that's why when Councilmember Gloria mentioned it to me, I said that, first of all, I wasn't available to go in May. I'm having my graduation that weekend. So I asked Louis about different dates, and he said that the hotel could only host us that day. And I said, well, let's just move it, have it local, support local vendors, have our vendors here from San Luis cater for the lunch, like a soft breakfast or whatever the case might be, instead of spending over $25,000 for one budget retreat in Phoenix.
Yeah, Mayor,
Mr. Ponce?
I do agree. Like we did it on I believe it was 2020. We did it locally. No, 2020. Yeah, 2020 or 20. No, last year. We
Because of
did it
COVID,
locally.
yes.
Yeah. So I think we can do it same thing here. Doesn't matter. Where. Either on one of the facilities or someplace else. As long as we do it locally, so we can save money. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'd just like to add that after reviewing the timeline that we received from Louis, most of the sessions will be held during our meetings. So that's why I also think that maybe we should consider holding it here and save ourselves the $25,000 that it costs to travel.
Okay. Anyone else?
Are we saving, or we just not using the funds that were put aside from the,
I think it was only $8,000 set aside from last.
how much was it, Louis?
That is correct. We currently have an $8,000 deposit at Talking Stick
From COVID when it hit?
from 2 years ago,
Right,
yes.
2 years ago. And
Yes, we do.
No, that's fine. If we need to save money, we shouldn't be spending it somewhere else. We should actually have the retreat here in City Council, actually have it here. And if we're really saving money, we're going to make sure that you bring your own lunch. So you need to bring your own lunch. And so instead of going somewhere else and having it catered, I think either you go home and you serve yourself lunch. And it's going to be much more affordable. And I just have no problem as long as we have a commitment from staff and from council that you're going to be here. Every single year that we've had here locally, there's always a reason for a council member or staff to be leaving. And we're talking 14 hours we're going to spend working on this budget. And if we're going to do it locally, I expect everyone to show up locally.
And Mayor, I think our staff is very professional in the way that they will be here.
There's no doubt that that they will be professional. I just want council to be here also.
Well, I know I can be here, so I can only speak for
I'm
myself.
not questioning you. I'm questioning everyone else.
I think as part as council members and taking the oath we took, then we need to make it a priority, and we have, 2 months to make schedules around it and prepare to be here or wherever we decide to hold it.
Yeah.
If it's here, or if the vote turns out that we go to Phoenix for the retreat, I think then we need to make a commitment.
It's obvious that we're not going to go to Phoenix. It's obvious that it was already made. It's already there. And the thing is, I recommend we do it here, in-house, You want to save money? We're going to save a lot of money. And let's do it locally. And I invite the public to be here, to be present. And no, let's have it here. I have no problem having it locally, in our staff, within our facilities. Any objections to that?
I know we had the date set for May. Is there a way that now that we're gonna have it in-house, we can move it a little bit, Louis?
And if mayor and council are available, one of the recommendations would be the 22nd and 23rd of April, if that would work. If not, we can follow up with mayor and council if that date's available, and that would also, we'd be able to take away most of the work sessions that we have planned, if that would work. If not, I can work on other dates, but that's the date. If we want to just, traditionally how we've done a Friday and Saturday would be April 22nd, 23rd.
Before
If
you
not-
proceed with that date, I just want to clarify that I am doing CMEs, Continuing Medical Education, and I've already paid my $900, and the city is not going to pay me $900 for my sessions.
For that weekend, Mayor?
For that weekend, see.
And again, if not, then we stick with the original date, and we still work on the
I can work on the 30th, the following weekend. I have no problem with the following weekend, unless someone has any issues.
I know just it's Dia del Niño. I don't know if we're gonna have the events that we usually have. I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, I will accommodate to whatever weekend except the one that was already set because it's my graduation.
Yeah, no, exactly, we didn't expect that.
Mayor, if you'd like, I could send out emails and receive confirmation from mayor and council and provide that information to you. If you would like to.
I suggest you don't send an email, I suggest you talk to individual member. We don't want to
Okay.
break the law.
Okay, will do.
Yeah. If there's any objections? No? Okay. So we continue. So you're going to give us a date, make sure it's not on your graduation, make sure it's not on that weekend, and we're going to have it here, none catered, and no gifts, no bags, plain. You bring your own lunch. Fair enough?
Okay, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes.
So do we make a motion, or?
Direction.
Continue.
Well, the item does require a motion.
Okay,
I think that you can just go with the direction to staff, especially since we don't have a date, and there seems to be a consensus to stay here.
obviously, Kay, it's a consensus, so we don't need a motion. We need to proceed and make sure that we work, make sure we get those dates, make sure that council provides any available weekend that you're available, make sure that we are available, and that's it. Thank you, Kay. We are now going to go ahead with our next item. Item number 6F, discussion and possible action in all matters regarding the approval and adoption of order number 202204, an order of the mayor, city council, city of San Luis, Arizona, to authorize the city of San Luis Police Department to receive funding for overtime and mileage for approving an intergovernmental agreement and authorizing execution of subrecipient agreement operation Stone Garden Grant Award overtime and mileage between the state of Arizona through the Arizona Department of Homeland Security and the city of San Luis through the San Luis Police Department. Chief?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council, again, we're coming to you as we do every single year when it comes to the Stone Garden grants. And I want to kind of give you a quick little history. In 2017, when you entrusted me with the chief's position, this grant was a little over $300,000. And as you can see, our total funding for this particular year, 5 years later, is almost $700,000. So our team has made great strides to up the overtime budget as well as some of the reimbursement back that we have. At that particular time in 2017, our total grants that we had was a little over $350,000, and this year we're on track to receive about $833,000 with all the rest of the grants. So we're bringing this to you tonight on behalf of San Luis Police Department and asking you to go ahead and accept the IGA for $697,673.
Good job, Chief. Good job. Any questions or concerns from council?
No, Mayor.
If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve and adopt order number 2022-04, approving the intergovernmental agreement and grant as presented.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Chief. Now, item number 6G, discussion and possible action on all matters regarding order number 2022-05, in order of the mayor and city council of the city of San Luis, Arizona, authorizing, directing, and entering into intergovernmental agreement between, with the Greater Yuma Port Authority regarding infrastructure improvement. Kay?
Yes, this is an interesting IGA. It's with the Greater Yuma Port Authority, which is consists of the city of San Luis, the city of Yuma, the county of Yuma, and the Cocopah tribe. I'm going to call them GYPA. It's easier to say that. So GYPA was able to get an agreement with the city, with the county of Yuma. The county of Yuma has entered into a separate IGA with GYPA to use their ARPA funds to put in infrastructure for the last unit of the subdivision to be built out with infrastructure. And so the county is obligated to take care of financing and management of the construction. So the Greater Yuma Port Authority came to us and said, since a sister government is putting in the construction, will that suffice for assurances for that it will be built? And they have definitely committed to the ARPA funds going into this project. So this is to accept that as assurances. And in exchange, the Greater Yuma Port Authority will be posting assurances for the warranty period. But for construction, we have ARPA funds, we have a commitment from the county, and so that's the meat of the agreement.
I have no questions, Kay. Does council have any questions or concerns?
No, sir.
No.
If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve order number 2022-05 to adopt the intergovernmental agreement with the Yuma Greater Port Authority as presented.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Item number 6H, discussion and possible action on all matters regarding resolution number 2211, a resolution of the mayor and of city council of City of San Luis authorizing the submission of an application to the United States Departments of Interior Bureau of Land Management to renew lease AZA-28915, the recreation and public purposes lease of November 19th, 1997, and subsequent amendments for the San Luis City Hall complex. Mr. Jose Guzman, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. This is a request for authorization to submit the recreation and public purpose lease renewal for the continued use of 17.3 acres for the City Hall complex, and authorizing the city manager or designee to sign any required document. So on 1997, BLM granted the City of San Luis the lease for the San Luis City Park. In 2006, the lease changed of use, changed from recreation to public purpose for the City Hall, and the expiration date is November 18, 2022. one of the application requirements is a certified copy of the resolution authorizing the application and signing officer. The approval of this resolution will meet that requirement.
I have no questions. So this will take care of the lease situation we're sitting right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to be evicted from the land we sit right now?
Yeah, we're gonna submit it soon, so the expiration is November, so.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Any questions from council?
No, sir.
If further, I will now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve and adopt resolution number 2211.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. If there's a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Jose. Item number 6I, public hearing followed by discussion or action regarding rezoning case number 2022-00585 and ordinance number 242, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of San Luis, Arizona, rezoning a parcel 2.9 acres from community commercial C2 to high-density residential, assessors parcel 77-61-165, located on the northeast corner of Avenue F and County 24th Street in San Luis, Arizona. I will now entertain a motion to open public hearings.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Mr. Jose A. Guzman, Director of Planning and Zoning.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, this is a request by Agustin Tumbaga on behalf of Rydell Holdings to rezone 2.9 acres from commercial to high-density residential. This project was brought to council back in January 12, 2022, and the minor amendment was approved to allow the application for the rezoning. The reason for the rezoning is for the construction of a apartment complex with 48 units. We presented this item to the commission, and they recommended approval with the condition as presented by staff. Staff recommends approval with the condition that the development shall comply with the City of San Luis zoning regulations, building code requirements, and public works standards, including the requirement of a traffic study. The applicant agreed with the recommendation of staff.
So staff recommends reapproval
With the condition.
with the conditions? Okay. Does council have any questions or concerns? No. Everything was discussed with the owner,
Yes,
and there was no objections to it?
they agree to the condition.
They agreed to the conditions without no problems?
No.
Anyone else in the public want to say something before I close public hearing? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. I will now entertain a motion.
I move to approve the reading of ordinance number 424.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries.
Ordinance number 424, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of San Luis, Arizona, amending the official zoning map of the city of San Luis by changing the zoning classification of 2.9 acres from community commercial C-2 to high-density residential R-3 for property located on the northeast corner of Avenue F and County 24th Street, repealing any conflicting provisions and providing for severability.
I will now entertain a motion.
I move to approve and adopt number 424.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.
Item number 6J, discussion and possible action on matters regarding the purchase of a new traffic signal materials and equipment for the Highway Users Division for emergency signal repairs and upgrades on multiple road intersections of Main Street. Mr. Eloy Rivera, Director of Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. I bring here tonight, come here tonight for approval of the purchase of some equipment that it's needed for repairs on three of our signals, lights on traffic signals. And one of them is actually, it was emergency. We actually started repairs this week just because it needed them. In the signals that are, or the equipment that's being purchased is for the signal on Main and County 22nd, on Main and Piceno, Main and Cesar Chavez Boulevard. All those three signals are about the same age. They were put in when Main Street was widened to the current conditions back, I don't know, probably close to 20 years ago. But recently, we've been having issues weekly and then daily, especially on the County 22nd Street one. Yuma County is the agency that helps us with the maintenance.
Okay, good.
And they really said, we can't find parts to do the repairs anymore. You have to really buy all three cabinets. So unfortunately, like I said, one of them's an emergency. We were doing the repairs now, but we're buying three cabinets, one for each, and then we're buying a fourth one, 4 spares. These are 3 to 5 month lead items. That's how long it takes for them. The repairs that we're doing, we're borrowing one from the Yuma County so that it can be repaired. So we're returning theirs, and we're buying 2 for the other 2 and one for spare. And then we're also buying a new detection system for each of the intersections. Same thing, it'll be a camera system at each of the intersections to detect when vehicles are at the intersection and actually works with the phasing. And then we're buying power backups for each one. None of them currently has a battery backup system. We're also updating the push buttons for the pedestrians for the crosswalks. And so with all the equipment and the work that's going to be done to install the equipment, we come with a total of $228,000, $485.11. I'm not sure if there's any questions or anything that I need to go into more detail as far as why it's needed, but it's as we all know, Main Street is always busy, and the better the equipment is working, the better it's for everybody.
Mr. Vera, there is no doubt that needs replaced. The fact that we have a 4-way stop on that intersection,
Right.
I received so many phone calls that what is our police department doing or not doing? And the thing is, we need to make sure the public, we advertise when we have a problem like that, because it's a big crisis. It's a crisis. You mentioned, right, it's an emergency. We need to replace them. And because one, so many people use that intersection. And trust me, they're having problems with 4-way stops in that area. So we need to make sure that we have PD there, and please have our officers, if they see any kind of situation where the traffic is falling back, I need them to start directing traffic, especially in those 4 stop signs that we're doing. We need to be proactive about this, because trust me, people are getting frustrated. I am getting frustrated. We shouldn't be having, and let's replace them. It's an emergency, Mr. Vera, you're correct. And they're outdated.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, just because it was emergency, we need to ratify the PO that was issued for the repair that was completed. Because we did start Monday, and they completed it today. It's functional right now.
Okay.
So, but part of the agenda item is to mention that it would be a ratification of the PO for the labor of installing one of the intersections.
I don't think there's any questions. Any questions from council? If not, I want to take a motion.
Here, I move to approve the purchase of traffic signal lights in the amount of $228,045.11 using cooperative agreement as presented.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor, you need them also to do a separate motion to ratify a purchase order?
If including in the items not enough, it would be a motion to, then we would have to do, include it in the motion then. It's included in the item, but the motion doesn't cover the ratification, so.
Point of clarification, so we just did a motion on an item that was not completely
Yes.
complete?
Mr. Vera mentioned that he needed a purchase order ratified.
In the agenda item, I mentioned that we need to, we issued a PO for the work, it's completed, so it hasn't been paid for, but so it can be ratified. I'm not sure if it needs to be part of the motion or not.
For clarification, let's make another motion. Kay, would you mention the motion required to clarify?
And is the amount of the purchase order the $228,045.11?
Correct. That's the only work that has been completed was the 22,080 for the work being completed. Do you need to include also that waive procurement code?
Maybe we should take a little recess to get a motion together.
Okay, let's continue this item till, okay, we're not voting on this yet, so we're going to go to the next item. So you both have homework right now and get that motion done.
He has it already.
Can we move to the
We're going to
next
go
item?
ahead and go with item number 6K. Discussion and possible action, all matters regarding authorizing to reallocate fiscal year 2022 budget capacity to projects requested in fiscal year 2023 budget, to use non-ARPA funds for projects in the ARPA list, and to waive the procurement code as allowed under San Luis Purchasing Code Section 3.05.01F for purchase exceeding the 45,000 threshold. Monica Castro, Director of Finance. Please, Monica, proceed.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. We had our budget reviews last week, and we were able to see how the budget for next year is looking. We were able to take a first peek on it. And we wanted to share information with you because we saw an opportunity to maximize our resources if we effectively allocate budget and take quick action. So right now, we have about 7 million in projects that were budgeted in the fiscal year 2022 and that will not be completed. Reason is the license supply chain shortage, shortage of staff, labor, grants not, that we were expecting were not awarded, and COVID challenges are the main factors. So all of these projects that were not able to be completed in this year, many of those projects are very important and critical for the city. So most of them are included again in fiscal year 2023.
Yeah.
So they're putting a lot of weight into the budget. So we have new projects along with 7 million carryovers. And that is leaving a lot of budget capacity this year. We're leaving money on the table.
Too much.
So right now, we have in fiscal year 2023, we have $30 million in capital projects that were received requests. This is $18 million more than what we adopted in our budget for 2022. Most of these projects are a one-time payment, and we have reserves that have been accumulated over the past year. So the issue is that we don't have money. We have money because we have been for 3 years, we have not been able to complete projects, so they have been accumulated and we have been building reserves. We have funds to pay for those projects. The issue is that we are at risk of going over our state limitation. The state sets limits on how much we can spend, and right now we are $8 million over. As the city grows, definitely we need to start looking at alternatives on how to be able to face that growth without going to that limit. So we will be evaluating alternatives such as home rule option or a permanent base adjustment. And at one point, I'm going to come with that topic, and we're going to be discussing it. But for now, we need to find a solution on how to approach the situation that we have at hand. And we believe that through effective budget allocation, we might be able to do for the city through a swap of, I got ahead of myself. Okay, so our budget strategy is to reallocate the budget capacity from the projects that will not be completing in 2022 and swap them for projects of 2023 that department heads have assured us that they will be able to complete it before the end of the year. Also, another strategy is use non-ARPA funds for projects that can be completed also this year, because ARPA funds, they don't count towards the expenditure limitation. And time is of essence, so we are also asking council to waive the procurement code for purchases over $45,000 so we can expedite the purchase. We want to make sure that we have all those projects completed before the end of the year.
Makes sense.
Any questions up to here?
No, makes sense.
Okay. So the first proposal that we have is replacement of our fleet. Last year, in the budget retreat, I recall that council asked me about a strategy on how to renew the fleet. We have over 63 vehicles that are older than 10 years older. The goal and the strategy is that we want to make sure at least to have vehicles in our fleet that are 10 years and new. And still, the idea will be 5 years, but I think that we're so behind that I think that we want to be conservative. So we are proposing to purchase 23 vehicles of the 63 vehicles that are old or non-working. And by doing this, we will be able to acquire them this year and not putting them in next year's budget. So we will be able to see some of the budget that we have right now available. I'm putting here the list of vehicles. Like I mentioned, all of those vehicles is just replacement are old vehicles.
That's good.
Okay?
Monica, that's good.
Okay. I'm gonna go now. The second one is the CIP projects. Again, all those projects that are presented here were reviewed by administration and finance. And also, we took a criteria. We make sure that they will improve the operations. We make sure that they will replace outdated property, or they will improve the safety and healthy living of the residents. And also, that one important characteristic is that they have to be done before the end of the fiscal year. Okay. And the last proposal is operational expenses. These are just minor tools and equipments, professional services, designs that we can pay this year. Department heads provided me with items that they will be able to complete this year, and that's how we come up with this list. So in total, we are seeking approval to reallocate budget up to $3.2 million to cover the projects presented. Like I mentioned, we have budget capacity this year. I think it's important that I specify from which projects we want to take them, and the ones that we identify, we have more, but we have the build grant. It was $1.5 million. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. Also, we allocated in 22 $900,000 for the Cesar Chavez Boulevard and for Avenue intersection. Unfortunately, also that project was not be able to be completed, and $800,000 for the storage tank. So we will take those funds and we just reallocate them in all the different projects that we presented. That will relieve the budget for next year, and pretty much we will be able to replace 23 vehicles, and we will be able to do like all the list of projects that we just presented.
I just want to comment that it's an excellent idea. It's going to save us, it's going to add less pressure to the 2023 budget. And yes, definitely. Good job. Any objections from council or questions from council? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve budget transfer up to 3.2 million to complete in fiscal year 2022 projects requested in fiscal year 2023. Budget to use non-ARPA funds for projects in the ARPA list and to waive the procurement code for purchase exceeding 45,000 as allowed under the San Luis Purchasing Code as presented.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Monica.
I mean, I saw we're getting rid of a 2006 Crown Victoria finally.
But Jenny,
A cassette player, you're gonna miss your cassette player there.
do we have that item? Summer current events. Events by mayor, city council members, and/or city manager present to ARS 38-431.02. Today, I had the privilege of meeting the representative for Sonora, Mr. David Figueroa. He will be working directly with not only the governor of Arizona, but also with local municipalities in regards to trying to work on the same agenda like the Port of Entry 1, Port of Entry 2. But we want to make sure that Mexico, Sonora, the state of Sonora, is at the same speed we are when the construction begins for Port of Entry 1. I think that's very crucial. So it was an excellent meeting, and we exchanged our cards, and we will continue working. What was discussed was a safety corridor. I believe there's a safety corridor going from Phoenix to Rocky Point, for example. But we discussed a safety corridor which will include San Luis Rio Colorado all the way to Rocky Point, to invest in infrastructure in that road and make sure that our residents feel safe traveling into Mexico. And so we discussed multiple issues regarding public safety, and what can be done to improve the image. So it's a work in progress, and Mr. David Figueroa committed to work with local mayors and also county supervisors to facilitate and to help with issues that deals with Arizona and Sonora. So it was a very productive meeting. I also had a meeting today with Port Director Schwan. There were some issues that need to be discussed, and things are changing, and that are going to affect our community, may affect our community. The biggest issue is wait times. Wait times is still a big issue. The movement of asylum seekers is also a big issue. We want to make sure that we work with our partners in CBP. We want to make sure that we work with Border Patrol. We want to make sure that we work with the state and actually tell the federal government we need assistance in regards to dealing with possible crisis in the future. The biggest issue right now is the Port of Entry. The biggest issue is there's always a risk that our federal government or any federal agency might start removing money that's sitting in the bank that was destined for the Port of Entry. And it can happen. It's happened in the past and can happen again. So a 16, 17 lane Port of Entry can end up being a 12 lane. And so we need to advocate. We need to make our presence, make sure that Congress passed $147 million for the Port of Entry 1, and $147 million should be spent on Port of Entry 1, not on any other project. Congress was very specific, so I am questioning. I am doing my due diligence, and I just want to make sure that they are aware that the public knows that $147 million were advocated for Port of Entry 1, not $115 million. So that's a very strong statement, but so be it. Our federal government, our Congress passed that amount, and that amount needs to be spent in San Luis and nowhere else. So for clarification. So that was a very productive day. And also, I just want to mention that we will be having a new bank, AEA Federal Credit Union. And they say they're going to build, actually, they might finish building this year. So they're very aggressive, and they already have 5,000 members. And so they're very excited. They've been wanting to come to San Luis for years now, but they wanted to make sure that we meet their criteria, and we meet their criteria and more. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see another bank institution moving to town, because there's plenty of services they can provide. So it was very good, and I was very fortunate. And so, and we have 3 more businesses coming. We have Starbucks, we have Burger King, and we have the new car wash. It's a national change. I know people, I read the comments regarding wanting a different kind of restaurant. They're tired of Burger King, but unfortunately, we don't have a choice sometimes. The thing is, a Burger King provides jobs, and I wish there were more diversity, and that's only harder for us. That tells us we have to work harder. And the thing is, this is for businesses that are coming in at the same time, and that's huge. That is huge. And the fact that Starbucks decided to come to our community, that means we had to meet a certain criteria, and we met that criteria. So more businesses are on the way. It's a fact. And so San Luis continues to grow. San Luis continues to be one of the fastest growing community in the state of Arizona. And so I commend you. So a lot of things have been happening in the past couple of weeks. So I'm excited, and thank you, staff, for everything you do. I know it's been hard, it's been challenged, and so I think we're catching up little by little. I know we're working on the retreat. I know we're working on the budget, on those, and it's hard. It's the time of year again. So thank you, fire, thank you, police, for what you do. I really appreciate it, and let's continue the work. Okay? Anyone else?
Mayor?
Just to mention the safety event last Wednesday, I was there, as well as Councilmember Cabrera. It was a very largely attended event. Thank you, everybody, all city staff that participated in making that happen. Great community event, family-oriented. I could see the smile on the kids' faces when they were allowed to get up on the fire trucks and the police vehicles, and that's always very rewarding to see their little faces smiling. So thank you guys for making it happen.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Matias?
Mayor, just wanted to announce, just let everyone know that Buna George for the Greater Yuma Port Authority is attending a Land Ports of the Future workshop in Laredo, Texas. This is a 3-day seminar that's going to cover a lot of issues happening at the port of entries and port authorities, and how they take classes and training on how they could come back and apply for more grants and see what other doors open for our ports here in San Luis, Arizona.
That's good that you mentioned the port. Our Port of Entry 2 continues to break records on a monthly basis. Yes. The number of trucks that are crossing our port is increasing. I just had a little conversation with our counterpart, our mayor, Yescas, and he's been going, actually, visiting some states, and very good things are happening to our port of Entry 2. There's a possibility that one state will focus their imports or exports to go through our city. So Port of Entry. So this is something that's going to change, I believe, not only the whole dynamics, how the port is working, but the times of operation also. So it's going to get interesting. The next year, 2 years, you're going to see a dramatic increase in the number of trucks. More trucks are coming from Baja California. Instead of going to the California borders, they're coming through Yuma. They're coming through San Luis. And their hub is Phoenix. So it's not only generating jobs, but people are looking into possibly buying more land in our area. So that's a good thing. So good things are coming for San Luis. So thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Are we ready with that motion? There was already a motion.
The motion that was mentioned, it's accurate. We haven't made payments, so no ratification will be needed, although a PO was issued. And the amount that we were including in the agenda item covers all 3 installations, but they'll be installed separately. So really, they're not one huge project. So motion is okay.
So motion is okay? Legally
Correct.
speaking, motion is okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So there was a motion, there was a second already. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Thank you, staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go with call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment. Members of the city council may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01, H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff in studying the matter to respond to any criticism and scheduling the matter for further consideration and discussion at a later date. Do we have any?
Yes, Mayor, we have Gary Garcia Snyder.
Gary, Mr. Gary, please.
Good evening, council, mayor. Wanted to say I'm blessed. I'm glad that you guys are staying in town, not spending that allocated money. The city needs it. We got a lot of infrastructure, obviously signs that we talked about. We need to put that towards the FA and stuff like that, lighting that we can discuss. I'm willing to donate the Ramada Event Center for your guys' use, especially when you're inviting the public. And I'm okay with catering for a day, curries. To me, you guys work hard, and I want you to work a little bit harder. And I want the city to show up and think about the city, us as a community. On the other aspect, congratulations on the skydiving. I know that's pretty exciting. But on the other note, which to me is dear heart, is the emergency status that we're going to have coming up. I hope that you took the opportunity today to voice our opinion as residents with the Title 42 about to go away here at the port. I noticed that you discussed it, but you weren't transparent. You talked about future. Well, the future's here. The critical's right now. Even with the stone garden that we received, thank you, Chief Jessup, that's paying money for overtime of people that we only have. Right now with the city itself, as you listen, the infrastructure itself is not set up for this amount of people and the amount of people trespassing through here. Now you open to the port where people are coming through the United States legally, but they don't have no location to live, they have no location to drive. They're gonna be walking around, roaming around the city itself. The response time already for the police and the fire station is not even safe, even for our residents. So now, I hope you have thought about it, the plan of action for the emergency, because to be honest, I think our safety as residents is number one. And I hope that you had the opportunity to discuss that and tell the port director that you're not in agreement with the federal mandate that's coming in. Even though it's a federal, it still comes down to a city allocation is how do you feel? Do you feel our response time is? Do you feel that we have enough people on staff, especially when you're talking about you need someone at a 4-way stop to police it when people are going into Mexico, but you don't have people coming in influx for El Efe or for Los Alamos or for lower areas. We don't have that influx. So I hope you had the opportunity to talk about that. I do have an opportunity to talk about why does the mayor of Yuma, Doug Nichols, talk about the border, and he specifically talks about San Luis, when I feel that I'm a resident, I should have representation of my local mayor, talk about the border, talk about the illegals that crossed through the commercial port, ran through the port of entry, that is actually going through the houses in El Efe and down here at various times. I believe the transparency from the city itself, the government, and our police chief needs to be on social media. It's not perfect, but I think as citizens, we should be able to understand that there might be danger around. Please give yourself an opportunity to be safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who's next?
That is all, Mayor.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Motion carries. Have a good night. Gracias.
Sí.